We started building the layout in about 2009. It's the first successful exhibition layout I've built.
So with this layout, my main focus was on the cottages and the gardens. In terms of constructing the cottages, which are at the back of the scene, these were scratch built using cereal packets and laboriously cutting out the individual bricks and then sticking those onto a solid piece of cardboard, and then painting them up to give that sort of slate effect with the different colour variations. So as far as the gardens were concerned, again, these were using household items. So I think mustard seeds became cabbages and broccoli, together with the bits of green tissue paper, and then also painstakingly taking some sort of longer grass material, dipping that in some orange paint to try and give a creation of a carrot-like effect.
And we chose to build it based on the various Welsh slate lines. I've had an interest in those since teenage years, through holidays, visiting, seeing what's there. And one of the ideas was to backdate this to Victorian times, so that we were seeing these lines in perhaps their heyday, rather than later on when they were run down or became tourist lines. We chose to build it as what's sometimes called an album layout, which reflects a number of different lines. The Welsh slate lines were all independent concerns with their own rolling stock, their own characteristics. And the idea was to build something where the rolling stock from one line could be comfortably at home on it just as much as another one. Most of the trains of that period ran as what's called mixed trains. They had the passenger coaches behind the engine and then various goods wagons on the back, either things like coal coming up the valley for use or empty slate wagons to go up to the quarries to be filled. The trains are arranged that way because at the time most of them didn't have continuous braking, which meant that if the couplings gave way, then the train could roll back down the hill, and so the passengers were kept as safe as they could be behind the engine with a guard and a brake, and then the loose wagons that were attached at the rear. The rolling stock comes from a number of different lines. As I said, they're all very individual, and the idea is to run a set from each individual line onto the layout at a particular time. So you'll see different rolling stock coming in from different lines. That includes the Talyllyn Railway, the Festiniog Railway, both of which are well known, some lesser known ones like the Penrhyn Quarry Railway and the most obscure Plynlimmon and Hafren Tramway. The original layout measured about 4 foot by 1 foot, which was based on a board that I had previously. Part of the idea of it was to create a feeling of space, which is difficult in that size. So a few years later, we added an equal sized portion onto the front. The unusual thing about that as an extension of a layout is there's no track or railway features at all. There's simply the chapel that you'll see in the video and a couple of lanes. But the idea is to create the feeling of an open space on the mountainside in Wales. One feature that does attract interest is the various walls and fences around the layout. There's 3 main kinds of that. The station fencing is etched brass, which is actually reinforced to make it stand the rigours of an exhibition. At one point, somebody rested a camera on it, which shows how strong it is.
So the back scene is a amalgamation of several photographs stitched together. So my husband and myself parked up on the roadside somewhere in Wales, and I took a series of photographs to try and capture an iconic Welsh back scene, which I could then stitch together.
The other types of walling are dry stone walls, which are made by compressing large-scale ballast onto a former to make the shape, because dry stone wall isn't actually a vertical wall, it tapers in at the top. So we had to build that into it to get the correct shape. And then finally there's the slate slab fencing, which is common in parts of Wales where they do extract the slate. It's waste slate that is hammered into the ground end on, and then with wires wrapped around it. Rather than using slates, which are a bit large for that scale, we used sanded plasticard and then wound a very thin wire around it to tension the wall and make it stronger.
So as a bit of a nod to my passion, there is a little photographer standing on the platform taking pictures of, well, whatever might be in front of his camera at the time that you see him.
The disc signal at the entrance to the station is quite unusual. It's made from a kit of one that is on the Festiniog Railway. The principle behind it is that instead of a signal arm going up and down, the disc rotates. So when the red face of the disc is towards you, you stop, and when the disc is edge on towards you and you can't see it, then you're allowed to progress.